Those decisions should be made based on how they're going to affect people who are struggling to get a job, not how they will affect some politicians' chances of getting reelected. This debate isn't about President Obama and House Republicans. It isn't about Congress and the White House. It's about what's standing between the American people and the future we see for ourselves and our families.
The Republicans, they've admitted they went to dinner, literally, to dinner on inauguration night, the top leadership, and they just decided they were going to stop him from doing anything. They were going to grind the wheels of government to a halt, and they were going to essentially ignore him for 4 years. They were going to stop whatever they could stop, even when he put language in that was their language, even when he proposed bills that were essentially their old bills. They just decided they were going to stop him, and it's like he didn't exist. It's like he was a ghost. And they're just going to wait him out for 4 years and then get rid of him. And
is that a lie? Or do we see him doing? Yes, trying. Okay? Listen.
Let me turn to you. This is pretty unprecedented. No US president in history has ever defaulted. Is it conceivable that we could get to August the 2nd and a default happens?
It is definitely conceivable, and I'm very gloomy about the prospects because there are significant differences. They've tried and tried and tried for weeks now, dare I say for months, Piers, to get some sort of solution. I always assumed it would happen a few weeks ago. I didn't think it was going to go down to the final week. In the end, they may have a deal, but I'm not by any means convinced that it's certain, and it's possible that come next Tuesday, there won't be a deal. The federal government's going to have to decide which checks to write and which checks not to write, and that will cause serious dislocation. I assume if that does happen, I'm not saying it will, I fear it could, but if it does happen, the reaction would be so angry out there. Interest rates would go up, there would be fears of markets collapsing, the value of the dollar going down. Within a few days, cooler heads would prevail, but it's definitely possible that between now and next Tuesday, there won't be a deal. I hope there will be.
Gloria Borgia, I mean, Republicans have already been calling today for a possible impeachment of President Obama if we do go into default in America. I mean, these are extraordinary times. Can you envisage that kind of scenario?
The Republicans, they've admitted they went to dinner, literally, to dinner on inauguration night, the top leadership, and they just decided they were going to stop him from doing anything. They were going to grind the wheels of government to a halt, and they were going to essentially ignore him for 4 years. They were going to stop whatever they could stop, even when he put language in that was their language, even when he proposed bills that were essentially their old bills. They just decided they were going to stop him, and it's like he didn't exist. What is this?
You see how they tried to do what they were trying to do? They were talking about we'll impeach him.
Yes.
If he run our credit status, we'll impeach him. But they run the credit status.
Yes,
They were trying to put it on him. You know what would have happened if the president had invoked the 14th Amendment? They'd have held everything up in court. And then they'd have let it go, and it would have had to be decided. And then they would say, if it hadn't been for him, if he'd have let Congress do their job, this wouldn't have happened. Huh? If he obviously does not understand that he's not supposed to interpret law to the lawmaking body. That's the judiciary, if anybody. But he didn't walk into the trap. And the more they set traps and he don't walk into them, the more angry they get and the more blatant they get with their disrespect. Now listen to that Rush Limbaugh.
The next story we have from CNN Money, tax increase on the rich would impact just 3% of taxpayers. What's happening here? It's small. Well, I mean, 2 stories in a row, some kind of a record, a breakout year of truth. From the state-controlled media, as the government looks to ways to climb out of its massive hole of debt, all eyes are on the rich. No, they're not. All eyes are on government. All eyes are not on the rich, but
It's CNN. President Obama and many of his fellow Democrats continue to call for higher taxes on the wealthy. And according to results of the CNN International poll released yesterday, many Americans agree that's the only way the country can dig itself out of its current economic mess. About 63% of the 1,008 people interviewed over the phone said they think that the new bipartisan committee should raise taxes on higher income Americans and businesses.
Now, I want you to pay good attention to how here's a man trying to argue with the president that don't even know what the president said. And the thing is, if you get on about it, he'll tell you, I don't care what he said. Just like Joe Walsh. Just like John Boehner. And just like all the rest of the redneck club. Oh, listen.
But, asks CNN, just how many of these rich people are there? Now, you people know it. As regular listeners here, not only do you know how many of them there are, who earn over $10 million a year, some of them over $8,000, you know what their combined total tax payments are. Well, let's see. Let's read further together here and see what CNN says. Just how many of these rich people are there? And are there enough of them for a tax increase to really make a dent in the U.S. trillions of dollars in debt? President Obama has defined the nation's wealthy as those who make $200,000 or more. According to a recent report from the IRS, that leaves out about 97% of the tax-paying population. Well, Shazam. So they're accurate here. 3%.
And keep in mind that under a balanced approach, the 98% of Americans who make under $250,000 would see no tax increases at all. None. In fact, I want to extend the payroll tax cut for working families. What we're talking about under a balanced approach is asking Americans whose incomes have gone up the most over the last decade, millionaires and billionaires, to share in the sacrifice everyone else has to make.
See how he wasn't listening? President didn't say nothing about no 3%. He said 98% of the people won't even be affected. That's 2%. The way I count to 100. Huh?
Yes, sir.
So you say, what difference does it make? It makes a whole lot of difference. It makes almost a million people worth of difference. But listen.
President Obama has defined the nation's wealthy as those who make $200,000 or more. According to him.
And that's not how he defined them, was it? He said everyone that makes 250 or more. Right? So they dropped it to 200 or more. Huh?
Yes.
What is that? To try to frighten the middle class people? Do you understand? A lot of people, they don't listen. They don't pay attention to what's going on. Listen.
A recent report from the IRS that leaves out about 97% of the tax-paying population. Well, Shazam. So they're accurate here. 3% is who we're talking about. A report which provides a complete breakdown and analysis of returns from the 2009 tax year found that only a mere 3% of tax returns were filed by people earning a gross adjusted income of $200,000 or more. Americans earning $1 million or more were even more rare, comprising just 0.2% of 1% of the population of tax filers, accounting for a mere 236,000 of the 140 million tax returns received in 2009. So
yeah, but 2% of 140 million is 2,800,000. Now you take 2,800,000 people who every 4 years making $1 million. I mean, 250,000 and up. 2% of people in this country do that. The president just saying that he's going to take away them tax breaks and loopholes and stuff so that they can pay their fair share. And if every one of them didn't pay nothing but $800 out of their weekly income of $4,800 in time, they still have $4,000 a week left. But yet that would be something like $137 billion a year that would be generated by that 2,800,000 people. If they generating $137 billion a year out of that, it wouldn't take but 4 years to get that 400, as a matter of fact, 3 years. The 400 billion for this Jobs Act to pay for that, he'd have that back in 4 years. And at the same time, he's also putting them people on the tax roll, and that's more tax money coming back off of them. Not to mention that people who are entrepreneurs now would have some money that they can be making on while working to utilize to start their own business. You know, that's how you start your own business. You go work for somebody else and start putting some of that money aside until you got enough to do what you want to do. Is that right? Yes. Okay. But listen. This is, at the end of this, it's a Caucasian going to come on and tell you what he found dealing with some, a bunch of good old boys, he called them. But listen,